wrestler. The hell you mean? Come on.
No, but I am happy for you though, dude. Like I mean, good for you for signing up for that race. I am past the point in my life where I'm going to pay money to go run.
That's
Like
terrible.
if I like
about it.
like if I wanna get 3 or 5 miles in, I'll just drive down the street to the park and do the loop a couple of times, and don't have to pay any money for that. I get it though, like you paying for it, and like it's like a date that you can like look forward to, so you can like work up to it, and it keeps you disciplined and stuff like that. I'm way too cheap for that kind of shit. I don't see the value in paying money for that.
You're making me like regret this more and
No,
more.
No,
I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing myself. Like you legitimately, like as an adult, you paid for this. Like when someone hurting, and I'm like, yo, why? You chose this. No one chose this. You did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like good, I remember my wife. She ran a marathon a couple years back when we were still living in DC, and like her toe got so messed up. Like her big toe, like her big toenail was like it like got so damaged that it had to like slowly like peel the top layer off over the course of like a year. Yeah, it was disgusting. It was disgusting. So I mean,
I'm not doing
she's
that.
something. I didn't necessarily call her a boss that day, but yeah. To all you folks out there who like to run marathons, Duran is running a 5K, so he's inching his way up there. But y'all who run marathons, y'all are nuts, and I don't apologize for it. Y'all are insane to pay money to run 26 miles. That's ludicrous.
You make it sound so bad, bro.
Because you're paying for it. You can go do that for free. You don't have to pay anyone to do that.
Even the moment of like me taking and like listening to your words and like it actually like register, like you're right. It's okay though. It's gonna be a great day. I can't wait for this. This is my first like coming out of retirement party, bro. Like this is the first race I'm gonna be in years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm happy for you though. Like I say all that to say I am happy for you. I'm glad you're like you're doing this and you're it's going to keep you disciplined over the next couple of months. So
if anything, it'll be the most funniest thing ever if you record it. You'll see it like just my dude just walking.
Just power walking towards the end. Let's go. Hey man, as long as you finish, man. As long as you finish. Anyways, nerds, welcome back to another episode of New Block Nerds Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, aka Prince, with the homie Duran, aka Medic Grizzly. We are so sorry that we missed you guys last week. Duran had a death in the family, so we had some personal things to deal with. But we are back for another episode of Tuesday Thrones. We are in Essos again, talking Daenerys, and she is getting married to one Khal Drogo. So, Duran, obviously you've seen the show. You've seen how the wedding played out on the show. Give me your thoughts just about, where Dany is now versus where we found her last, and kind of, the whole spectacle of a Dothraki wedding.
She's pretty much was kind of sold by her brother to be a part of this. With the basically trade was for him to get a giant army, Drogo's army, to go back and capture the lands and the crown. So she's just a piece in this entire puzzle. But this chapter focuses on her becoming less scared and more of her own person. And it was captured in a very beautiful way because it was innocent, frightened young lady that's with these men that are almost Vikings type in a sense of the essence of it. Like, yo, like we just don't care about rules. What's the rule? Like at least 3 people die during a wedding. There has to be at least 3 people have to die. Is that even being like the principle of her being a young lad and seeing all this like transpire and how she's a centerpiece now? It was different for her. And then you talk about her fear, and then as the chapter progressed, you saw her become more confident in potentially her new role. It just was kind of cool seeing that, and then seeing her brother just like slither behind and like almost like turning the pieces and scraps like he's important, but he's really not. You're at the end of the table now, bro. What you thought was about you is not about you.
Yeah, and this is why I love Daenerys' chapter so much, because when people talk about a character transformation, we look at Daenerys in these first couple of POVs from her, and I mean, she's 13 years old. She's terrified all the time,
Yes.
all the time, and like each chapter, you see her gain a little bit more confidence, a little bit more autonomy over her own destiny, right? And that's why she's one of my favorite characters, because she comes so far. Like that's where, like, for me, I never understood, and I don't want to get into the show here, but when people were talking about how Daenerys was so entitled and blah 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 and whatever whatever, some of that has to do with misogyny, of course, right? But like I don't understand how you can watch Daenerys' story, seeing where she came from and seeing where, like, she really had to get it out the mud,
Yes.
and how you don't respect that, especially considering that along the way, like, yeah, of course she makes mistakes, as all rulers do, but she is very self-aware and is very, like, she understands when to do certain things and when to not do certain things, right? Like, and we'll get into that as we get further along, like in the book. But for me, I just love, like, to your point, how we're starting to see a transition now that she's getting married to Khal Drogo.
Hmm.
She's naturally becoming distant from her brother, right? Which is healthy, because Viserys is a piece of shit.
Oh
Um,
yes, yes.
and I just love seeing these little tidbits again, like reading it, for several times over, that, like, she's sitting up here on the table and he's sitting right below them. It's still considered a place of honor, because obviously, the bride and groom have to sit above everyone else at their own wedding. That's just how it goes. But they sat Viserys and Ser Jorah and Illyrio just below them. But you can kind of see Viserys just, like, seething, because he's like, I mean, yeah, he's a piece of shit, but technically, by the laws of Westeros, he is kind of the rightful heir to the throne at this point. So, it's a little below his station. I get it, right? I understand why he's mad, but he's a piece of shit, so we laugh at him for it. But yeah,
It
no, I
mirrors.
go ahead.
It mirrors John. Remember we at the lunch? I mean, the dinner, and he was like at the bottom, and he had to see everything, and how there's so much going on, and position and titles, and bloodlines, and what people actually view as importance versus what actually is important. And then seeing how, like, Daenerys is looking up, like, in envy, but bro, like, they don't care about this over here. Like, they don't care about that at all. Like, she is going to be the lady of their army, and that plays role above you. You're just a little, no offense, but you're just a little piece of peasant. You're nothing. You're not
Yep.
contributing to the army. You're not a fighter. You're not the king. You're not Drogo, but you're also not the queen. So nothing you say matters to us.
Right.
And
And
I
that's
think that's
what
pretty interesting.
like kind of makes me think, was there some game playing with Illyrio when he proposed this marriage to Khal Drogo for this army, right? Because they know that the Dothraki don't. This isn't Westeros. They're not going to follow Viserys just because his dad sat on a throne half a world away.
Yes.
That's not how they get down, right? And so they even told him too, like, look, you're gonna get your army. Like, they are true to their word, but they're gonna do it on their own time. Like, you can't bug him about this. Like, you going up to him being like, all right, you married my sister, where's my army? That's not how this is gonna get done, right? Viserys doesn't really understand that, but he's also not so much of a fool as to walk up to Khal Drogo and demand anything,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
he knows he'll get his shit pushed in. So,
Absolutely.
it's again, it's a great little transition we're starting to see. Just like I think you alluded to earlier, like, you're starting to see Dany become less afraid, and I
Yes.
loved kind of seeing that evolve over the course of the chapter, of her just, like, sitting there not being able to eat anything, and then especially when Khal Drogo gives her her horse, that's when she really, like, starts to really come alive.
Speaking,
And they even say it there in the chapter, like, for a while she forgot to be afraid. Maybe for the first time in her life, she'd
yes.
never been afraid. You
Even
know what I mean?
like how aggressive they were with the women, and how, like, it shows
Hmm.
and it implies, like, how one man and the woman, how they mounted in front of, this is in front of everyone. This is not like in the corner. This is like you're sitting at a table. This is all happening. And like, is it to impress me? And I'm not used to this world. And then you saw her being the timid little girl that she is. And then when the gifts, you mentioned about the horse and how she tells him that you gave me the win. I think I'm paraphrasing like that right
Mhm.
there, her expressing her, even her thoughts and saying that was a big step. She always was timid.
Yeah, and it was a great moment because they even say that it was the first time she saw Khal Drogo smile when she told him that you gave me the wind, right? So like, as terrible as the situation is, I mean, again, we're not making any kind of uh positive judgments about the situation. Like, she is still 13 years old. She is a child. So this is very, very weird. But there is a lot of, and she even says it too, a lot of surprising tenderness that comes from Khal Drogo and their relationship here, where you would think that he's just going to be this brute, and when it comes time to consummate the marriage, that he's going to do what he did in the show, right? Which is why I love the book so much more, because the show can't give you this inner dialogue of what she's thinking this entire time, because the only thing he can say to her is no. That's the only word that he knows, right? So it's interesting to kind of see that transformation throughout the chapter of her really coming into her own and I'm not going to say not being a timid little girl, because she is still a timid little girl, but being less so every every second of every day. She's gaining a little bit more confidence.
And that's the crazy thing you mentioned the show. Me being a show watcher first prior to reading the books, I was expecting for this to be like some explicit, aggressive, just straight stuff from
Yeah.
what we've seen. It was not that at all. This
No.
man, like the way it was the worded, it was like this man's a sweetheart on the low. Like he valued her position and who
Mm-hmm.
she was. He's speaking that he knew no other word besides no. It just also tells you how like the intellect gap between the other kingdoms versus those who are of the warrior way. It just was a different world back then, and how like merging together, and how she has a thought in the mind, and she's like he's a big giant brute, but he has so tender hands, and how he's taking his time to do these things, and he made her feel like she was actually somebody, and that it was nice to read that
And also weirdly safe, right? Like,
yeah,
as awkward as the situation is, like the way that she describes, like you said, how gentle, like firm but gentle he was with her. It could have gone a lot worse.
I thought it was, bro. Like I'm not like me, like only because I saw the show. Like I'm thinking the book is going to be brutal. Like they had to like soften up for the show.
Right.
I think it's softer in the books than it is on the television show.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion. And it was when they wrote off, and even like her brother saying, "Do your job," like basically implying that hey, you're only here for this, to take care of him and please him, so he can do what I want to do.
Right.
They weren't thinking about that man at all. And
No.
as weird as the moment was, it definitely showed her like evolving as a woman. So I'm looking forward to seeing like what transpires next,
Yeah.
as far as like her voice and how that's going to impact the actual dynamic of the relationship between her and her brother.
Yeah, and this is the first time in this chapter 2 that she has the dragon dream,
Yes.
which is obviously a lot of foreshadowing there. But again, it follows the theme of her entire character arc. Is she's starting off from the lowest she could possibly be, confidence wise, whatever you want to call it. And she's slowly, we're starting to see the rumblings of her coming into her own, and she's having to have this inner monologue with herself. I am blood of the dragon. I am Princess Daenerys, Stormborn of House Targaryen. Blah 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 blah. So she's like trying to psych herself up, but towards the end of the chapter and beyond, she starts to believe these things now. It's not just something she says to get her up out of bed every day. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. I'm really excited for the future chapters of her. Like you said, like the dynamic between her and her brother. I mean, the writing is on the wall. It's definitely going to change here because, she belongs to Khal Drogo now. She is part of his Khalasar now. So, like, Viserys, as important as you think you are now secondary to this whole ordeal now. And we'll see how Viserys feels about that going forward.
Before we conclude, let me ask you a question. When she spoke about the dream in the fire and how the dragon turned and looked at her, and then she woke up. What are your thoughts on that when you first read that?
The first time I read it, I mean, again, I had to watch the show before I saw.
Yeah.
Or I had watched the show before I read the books, so I kind of knew where it was going. But yeah, it's just one of those omens, right? Where it's just like, especially when you put it against Viserys always telling her, basically, if you piss me off, you're gonna wake the dragon. And here she is having nightmares about a real actual dragon, and then getting the dragon eggs. It's just like, all right, George he's throwing it in our face. It's like, hey, this is gonna happen, guys. This is gonna happen. So just bear with me for a little bit.
This is so cool. The fact to think that this is a world where this is across the sea. Like, we have been reading and we're seeing what's happening with Jon and the North and the King, and how they were just trying to find a new hand. And this is happening in another part. This world is so it's magnificent, bro. It's just the fact that you have, like, I can take a jet here, a jet there, and it's like I can stay in this world right here for hours and immerse with it, what's happening. And I forget all about what's happening over there. And that they don't collide, like, that's just so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, again, we're probably going to say it every episode, but George is a genius, man. The man, he's a genius. The world that he's built with A Song of Ice and Fire is just, it's I don't know how else to say it. It's magnificent, but
yes, it's good. It's so good.
Again, that was Daenerys 2 of Game of Thrones. I always look forward to Daenerys chapters.
Yes.
Thrawn, it's been a pleasure as always, and we will catch you guys next week for another episode of Tuesday of Thrones.
Peace and love.